Boom. What's up, good people? Hopefully, you are doing so very well out there in the wide, wide world, or maybe narrow world, as we will unpack today in today's episode. There's a wide, wide world, but then also, people sometimes are pigeonholed into very narrow boundaries of thought. But before we get into all of that, welcome back to the Inner Storyteller. Welcome back to the channels. Please consider subscribing. Please like the video. Okay, those two things help me and any of my guests. As obviously I have a guest today. We back with Sara Cross. Super exciting. It helps us get out to more people. Okay, and it helps me in my personal ambition to one day have this channel monetized, not just to feed the machine, but also to engage in efforts that gets my message out to more and more and more people, so that me asking you to do things that might lead to monetary value gain doesn't have to be a thing that I do anymore, right? Doesn't have to be a thing anybody does, because we've woken up to the unreal nature of money itself. But that is not the topic for today. If you are here, just know that you are in for real conversations, good people. We talk about natural law, religion, the good, the bad, and the ugly, money, anarchy, culture, and how mankind is manipulated by forces in the shadows that do not have our best interests at heart. And we are not bashing faith systems or calling people silly for having a religion. In fact, we're re examining religious stories today. But what we are doing is taking a look at the stories that we have the most faith in and the psychological affects and effects that those stories have on our lives and how they help shape society, how they help shape culture. And that examination always has to sit right alongside an honest respect for the current human condition, which is slavery. Okay, government is slavery, good people. And the question that we have to keep coming back to is what can actually be improved with a proper understanding of the inner storyteller and how it works. Now, like I said, we have a very special guest today. Sara Cross is back in the building for Wednesday Tea with Sara Cross, even on a Thursday. Okay, still on a Thursday, because, even if we take a day off, we still got to spill the tea. The cup runneth over, to use a biblical phrase. And really quick, before I bring Sara on, I just want to go through some notes to wet the palate a little bit, to familiarize ourselves with the Tower of Babel story. Some of the things that I was able to look into before we went live today, and yeah, this should definitely wet the palate, and then we'll bring Sara in. Sara's got a whole theory on this thing. It's really exciting, and I haven't heard it, so I'll be hearing it cold with you all, fresh. But there are three basic categories of how to interpret the Tower of Babel story. Okay, and first is the biblical reading. And whether you're talking about the canonical Bible or you're talking about the Bible plus other ancient, you know, Sumerian tablet scripture or writings or whatever that talk about it, the biblical reading is the first kind of standard reading. And the standard reading, pardon me, frames it as God punishing human pride. Okay? The more precise scholarly reading is a critique of imperial ideology. Basically, Babel is a pun, the Babylonian claim to be the gate to God, versus the Hebrew Babal, Balal, Balal, meaning to confuse. The tower matches the description of the Mesopotamian ziggurats built by empires using conscripted labor from across conquered territories. The intervention of God coming in and disrupting that whole process and confusing the tongues and doing all the things that it says God did, The intervention disrupts a concentration of coordinated human labor serving an imperial agenda. Okay, this is what the scholars say about this. Not, and I'm not one of them, not humanity's ambition in general, but the governing and priestly elite have a project, and God came in and took away their labor force basically by confusing the tongues and separating all the people and destroying the tower. The ordinary person was the workforce, but not the architect. Then we have a second reading, which is the Gnostic understanding, the Gnostic reading of the whole story. And the Gnostic understanding kind of inverts the conventional interpretation on its head a little bit. The being who confuses the languages is not attributed to the kind of loving creator, but instead the demiurge, okay, the architectonic power that governs the material world and sees genuine human consciousness development as a threat to its power or its existence, even. The archons, the rulers, use the confusion of language as a mechanism of control after Babel is taken down. Before Babel, you had a story, maybe a sense of unified consciousness or a unified thought, unified objectives, goals. You had unified understanding and unlimited potential for the human family. After Babel, you had confusion, fragmentation, limitation, etc., from people being confused and separate. The confusion of language is not a natural consequence of pride, of course. Pride is fine at certain degrees. It is an engineered intervention by forces that benefit from human beings not really understanding each other. And the last bit, and then I'm going to bring Sarah in, is the occult, or sometimes, like the Masonic or secret order interpretation. The secret order interpretation explicitly uses Babel as foundational symbolic language. The candidate to be initiated, the initiate, if you will, or candidate to be initiated, travels from the lofty Tower of Babel, where language was confounded and masonry lost, to the threshing floor, where the language was restored and masonry was founded. Freemasonry, pardon me, was founded. Babel represents, in this interpretation, the profane world of ignorance, where the true language was ultimately lost. And Blavatsky adds that one unified knowledge and one language existed in antiquity, and that became restricted to initiated students and was denied to subsequent generations. And it's my personal take that the dark occult, okay, the order giver class, if you will, have recovered either some of or all of the original unified language, or at least the symbols representing that, and while deliberately maintaining the confusion, uses it to push the agenda that, of the sort of the ultimate agenda of the one world government and the one world class of slavery, under that one world government's control, to the population. Now, that is not an assertion of this is how you, everybody out there, should interpret the story. This is just some notes that I gathered from looking into it, Wikipedia and talking with AI bot about history and such, getting into the story. But we're gonna bring Sarah back up to the stage here. First of all, hey, friend, what's what's happening? She's like, I'm not even talking right now. What's up? What's up? What's up? Um,
Good. Good. That's in California. It's like,
right. Hang 10 or something. I don't know.
but how are you? It's
Everything
like
is well. Everything is
general
super good.
greeting.
Right. Um, yeah, man. So the Tower of Babel is a very, very interesting story. Hopefully, my little overview of there's three kind of ways to interpret it doesn't didn't introduce too many things that will be too far away from where you're going to take this conversation. But I'm very excited, and I will give you the floor to kind of get this thing started.
Yeah, the Tower of Babel is a really interesting story. It might be currently so far my favorite story that is in the Bible. What's interesting about it, well, first, just as a prerequisite to understand this, I I would give warning to anybody taking the Bible literally. The Bible was never meant to be taken literally. And so when you take it literally, you can over like I think people like especially scholars who study stuff like this, I think in some ways there's some overcomplication and explanation when really if you were to look at the story as now it could have been an example of an actual historical event or it could have been an example of a warning or a allegorical lesson in order like well this is the kind of thing that can happen if you allow this. Now we have other examples like allegorical stories are very useful because they're meant to teach you. This is why you teach them to children, like the Grimm's fairy tales, Aesop's fables, even fictional writing like Sherlock Holmes. These are phenomenal for kids because they teach like subconscious internal understandings. Like when you get older, you kind of have like a more robust wherewithal that helps you navigate through information. So allegorical stories are very important, and like I kind of consider the Tower of Babel as an allegorical story, maybe something that may have been based on some history loosely that actually happened as like you got to watch out for that. Not that the Bible should be used for that all the way across. There's stuff
Right.
in the Bible you could like you got to read. I mean, and I would suggest if people are going to read it, I would read it as a study guide. I would read it because you got to know what the information is. And really, I wouldn't really read anything other than the original translations and not all the other different denomination variations of the Bible.
Where where
Um,
where can people find the what do you mean by original translations just for
I
clarity?
I actually well my husband he actually teaches this stuff as well, and he has a website that we can share. And at the bottom of his website, it's very simple. Very bottom of his website, you can download the free original translations. And when you read the original translations, you're just like, this is like not the book I thought that this was. It's like a freaking like D&D fantasy novel. Reads like the diaries of a madman. So it's actually quite an interesting read when you read it like that and then you're like, "Oh, so this word doesn't actually mean that. It means this." That puts a whole new spin on what we're talking about here. So that's why I also have like sort of the working theory or I would say consideration, my
Hmm.
speculation about what the Tower of Babel story is actually designed for
Right.
as an allegorical lesson to teach us certain things. So just to start with that.
No, absolutely. I mean, for me, my favorite story, as far as my favorite story to philosophize about, is the Garden of Eden. And there's a lot in the Garden of Eden story that if you just take it extreme, exactly literally at face value, whether you're interpreting Hebrew or, excuse me, translating Hebrew or reading like the King James version, or the NIV, whatever. uh, it's still like, nah, this is definitely got to be allegory. like like you just formed man from the dirt. Why didn't you just take another piece of dirt? Why are you taking his rib? That doesn't, I don't know,
Yeah,
but
it's
I wasn't there.
allegorical. It's certainly allegorical. And like, if you were really thinking about it, you'd be like, dude, this is uh, like, genetic science. We're talking about genetic development in ancient science. Like, and that's like a whole nother topic we can get into at
Yeah, yeah,
another
yeah.
day.
That's a yeah.
It's like, it's not magic, it's
Right.
science. And like, so I look at this stuff and like, you have to consider like whoever's writing down whatever document to like, tell or have a piece of history, like, documented for the future. You have to consider it's not like, that whatever was happening is, not technological. It's like the majority of the people, the era, like they may not have been there. And that doesn't have anything to do with like who on the planet currently has the high technology. Like we have today, like islands with tribes on it who are still like completely untouched tribes.
Right.
And they have like no real, like they don't have any real access to, like they're not innovating technology, like they're just living tribal lifestyles. And we still have that today. So like we have to consider that with our past as
Yeah, there's
well.
about 3 or 4 of them left.
Yeah, I mean, they're still out there. Like people have gone out on adventuring, but there's like,
I wonder
it's
how many Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings are out there.
yeah. And I think it was actually, there was a just as a side example of this to so people understand, if you have like somebody who, like a group of people who are like not technologically advanced, and you have on the same planet people who are very technologically advanced, and then those two come together. There was actually like sort of a study done sometime in I want to say mid 1900s or something like that.
hmm
And it was an undiscovered tribe that they found. And it was like the military or somebody, they actually landed on the island, and the people of the tribe were actually like, oh my God, these are like gods from the sky. And like it was actually interpreted like that. So like that wasn't that long ago. So I just keep that kind of stuff in mind when I'm trying to like look at the past and understand that like it doesn't matter the era. This stuff is kind of the same all the time.
Right.
So you have to be perspective about it.
Also, a side note, the estimated population of humans on Earth during the Tower of Babel story, the estimates vary, but it seems to be between tens of thousands and maybe up to about 1 million people. Now, that's a big range, but that's the estimates of how many people might have been on Earth when this story, like, people wrote this story long after. So they was when they wrote the story, it was much more people on Earth. But as far as when the Tower of Babel story is supposed to be set, only up to estimated 1 million people, or to a lot less, to a few, like tens of thousands
Yeah, and
total people.
that's what was documented. So that's just, we still don't have every single human on the planet today all documented.
Right.
We don't really know, like we have an estimate, that's it. Like there's no way, there's no defiant number even today. So I kind of consider these things when I'm looking at history and I'm reading stuff like the Bible.
hmm
And I think allegorical stories are very, very useful for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Nick says allegory follows very specific protocols if done right and not just random. Star
Right.
lore. No
Yeah.
doubt.
They're designed a specific way for a reason.
Right.
It's psychological, and it's meant to, this is why we use allegory with our children,
Right.
to teach
Christ
them.
Christ taught in parables.
That's
Adults.
right.
you know?
Like that was one of the things. There are modern Christians today who take the Bible absolutely literally. And it's like, even Jesus in the Bible says, I talk in parables. You're not supposed to take it literally. It's
And that's supposed to be
allegory.
God. But anyway.
So
Yeah.
um Jesus never even said that he was God. He's like I'm not the messenger. Don't leave your message with me. Develop a relationship with God. Like,
Yeah,
who are
he did
you?
say that a bunch of
I'm
times. You
yeah,
know,
I'm
yeah,
not the answering machine to God, guys. Get a grip.
right.
Like that was his message. Like seriously. And then so
But
it's
even if he is one, like, I and the Father are one, with something else he said, a different chapter, a different book. Even if that is the correct, let's say, the correct reading or whatever, he said, I teach in parables. He said don't take my stories, sowing seeds, very literally. Here,
read between the
those who
lines.
have ears to hear and eyes to see will be able to get my teachings, because I teach in allegorical terms.
Absolutely. Read between the lines. Like even that's allegory. I am, I am, the one, like we all are. We're all
Yeah,
part of the same fraction of source. We're all part of that fraction of God. Every single one of us is that. And that
yeah.
was like what he was trying to teach. Not, I'm literally freaking, we're all children of God in that sense. So it's allegorical. And that's what I want people to go in thinking about the Tower of Babel. And so, um, we can go into it and just read what the story actually is, and then we can kind of break it down.
Let's do it.
This is actually from the New Living Translation, which is probably the closest to the original translations. Um, if you were to read the original translations, it's a little bit different, but as far as like what's actually in published Bibles, this is the New Living Translation Bible. It's Genesis 11, 1 through 9. And it says, quote, at one time, all the people of the world spoke the same language and used the same words. As the people migrated to the east, they found a plain in the land of Babylonia and settled there. They began saying to each other, let's make bricks and harden them with fire. In the region, as a side note, in the region, bricks were used instead of stone, and tar was used for mortar. Then they said, come, let's build a great city for ourselves with a tower that reaches into the sky. This will make us famous and keep us from being scattered all over the world. But the Lord came down to look at the city and the tower and that the people were building, and he says, look, the people are united and
The
they all
horror.
speak the horror of it, and they speak the same language. After this nothing they set out to do will be impossible for them. That's a key sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Come, let's go down and confuse the people with different languages. Then
So,
they
okay, in
won't.
this version it says "come let's," like it
Yep.
does in some other version. Okay,
And
okay,
so I'm
because
going to go.
that's a contentious piece of a
I'm
sentence in and of itself.
and I'm going to
Sorry, go
go
ahead.
over the context of it, because he's not saying I'm going to go down there and
Now,
stir
come
it up.
let's.
Let us
Yeah, let
go
us,
down and stir it up. We're going to talk about that in a second.
for sure.
Then they won't be able to understand each other. In that way, the Lord scattered them all over the world and they stopped building the city. That is why the city is called Babel, because that is where the Lord confused the people with different languages. In this way, he scattered them all over the world. Now, this is why I love this story, because to me, it is a red, blaring light. This is a warning. This is an alarm bell right here. And it should be going ding, 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 ding in the head. Be like, wait a minute, what are we actually like reading here? Because if you're somebody who's really understanding like what God is or source or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
God is not some jealous or dictator
Mm-hmm.
or somebody who's Like God doesn't like condone slavery. God doesn't get jealous of his children. God isn't going to go down and like see, the Lego city his, little kids are building and go, yeah, like F that city and kick it all. Like God doesn't do that stuff, okay?
Let
God
me kick
isn't,
down my kid's sandcastle real quick.
yeah, like God isn't this petty jealous thing. It's like, yes, I'm creating things that I am designing to purposely be able to create in my stead. So that is what like an artist does. An artist creates for creation to create. That's the ultimate artist right there. So it's like this, when it's read in this way, you have to listen to it in like the way the tense that
Mm-hmm.
it's being used in. This isn't God doing this. Clearly, it's not. What we have here is an allegorical lesson that says, okay, you have a large community of people. They are communicating, and I'm not taking it literally. They're all speaking the same language and blah, blah, blah. What it means, and it's not necessarily like this is a mix of people here, like from random mix of people from
America.
whatever, and they're all coming together. And despite the differences, despite whatever skin color, despite whatever backstory or culture, despite whatever like first language they may have, this is a group of people, because it doesn't specify any of that. This is a group of people who came together to build a community, and they were successful at it. They communicated, they operated together,
And they
they
got
built
shit done.
infrastructure, they were building society. You can't do that if you're some like, Bronze Age know nothing. You do that because you understand how technology works. So you have to think, okay, so the people who are building all of these things, you can't build a society without having some level of knowledge of technology and information. It's impossible. It cannot be done. You have to know something. And so what we have, and we'll go into it, and I'll say a little bit of what I think it actually is. This isn't God coming down and be like, oh, no, we can't have any of that. What this is a group of people who are of probably a higher technology level currently than whatever the regular population on the planet currently is. There's a small group of higher technology people. Whether they're from this planet or off world is kind of irrelevant.
Or extra dimensional.
Well, it doesn't even matter. They're
Doesn't matter.
here. They're
Yeah.
here on this planet, in this plane,
Right.
trying to, run
Influence. Yeah.
things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of that even is kind of irrelevant. The
Right.
point is there's a group of people who have a higher level of technology, like of however it works, than the current group of people living on this planet at the time. And they're like, oh no, we can't have them doing all this. We can't have them building society. They're going to realize that they don't need us anymore. We can't be having any of that. And that's like really the whole point, because this group of people, I mean, if you really want to get weird about it, like this planet has resources that are rare in the universe. So it's like we're kind of out in the ghetto. If you were to look at like the map, galaxy map, that we're actually like sitting in kind of the ghetto of the galaxy. So we're kind of also hard to find. So, and there's some,
We over on east side.
yeah, we're kind of like, there's kind of some other stuff. Like, I think we should like maybe dive into another day about all that stuff. But
we definitely can. I don't want to interrupt at a bad spot. Do you want to finish this thought first?
no, I mean,
Okay.
that's kind of really the point that I'm trying to make.
Right. Because if we do go into that, then I'm going to probably surprise you with my own sort of musings about the universe might maybe be geocentric. Now, I don't mean flat Earth, but there might be something about the we're special um, dogma that might be, I don't know, accurate. But regardless, whenever we on a random Wednesday we get to that, I definitely have something to say there. I think this is a good spot though to introduce some more from my little notes that I took, because in my own personal reading of it, and especially recognizing that was at the first or second sentence, the entire world, right? All the people of the world, I think is how your version put it. All the people of the world.
Well, I mean, you could be talking about
I don't
like
know. I
pockets
don't
of
know.
civilizations doing
Right.
this stuff.
I don't know.
So,
But the way that it is written in more than one version is like that.
yeah.
Everybody. So
Hmm.
so if we, I don't know. If we were to say, let's say, man, I don't know, all of Europe, Asia, and what we call Middle East and Africa. Everybody that would be in that, whether we're talking about Pangea or how the continents are separate now, everybody at least in this region around where the physical Garden of Eden might have been, and the surrounding continental areas were speaking the same language and participating in the project of let's make a city, let's be happy, let's continue to be fruitful and multiply, but also let us do this grand project that will probably take hundreds and hundreds of years to complete and do this thing. I say that the case might be that the project itself was the confusion of the people and wasn't the building of the city and the building of the tower necessarily, but the orders that came to build the city and build the tower and work together were orders that specifically came so that the confusion and the separation could later take place at a different stage of this one plan by either, like I said, the demiurge or some evil sort of demonic entity or people that had technology and felt like people coming together in the way that people were coming together was a threat to their influence. And I say here in this little paragraph, if the agenda was never primarily about building the tower, if the project was designed to separate people mentally, then the confusion was the intended outcome all along. The project happened to succeed at the moment it appears to fail. At the moment that the tower project fails, the workforce disperses, carrying the confusion with them. The unified symbolic language stays with the architects or the archons, and the fragmented condition of the world spreads. And the architects never need to have their people build another tower because the original project already completed the confusion, which was the intention.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah. Well, that brings up another good point. So, in civilization, when people build civilization, like human beings themselves, even like we don't even necessarily have to blame a parasite class. Like putting aside for a second that we have a dark occult parasite class on this planet that's like makes up about this much of our population, really. Um, Putting
Hopefully.
that aside, like their whole thing is inversion. Their only playbook is inversion. Their only playbook is divide and conquer. It's
Yep.
the only thing they really know how to do. And they know how to like manipulate people because they've had forever and ever and ever to like learn how to do it like effectively. So, but the human being themselves, like as amazing as we are, as creative as we are, as innovative as we are, we're fickle and we get, we're emotional and we have, strengths and weaknesses and we're
Yeah.
fickle and, we get lazy about things and we
Yep.
forget. We have short memory spans, and so like that's why we write everything down. That's why we document things because we don't just remember what like happened. We actually have to have a written record so we can go back and be like, this was actually our past. So putting all that aside for a minute, like human beings have a tendency to be corruptible all on their own. Even if we didn't have a dark occult parasite class on this planet influencing things, which that's all they are 100% influence. And I've said this before, we can either buy that influence or not. And that is up to us. That's personal responsibility. But human beings can be just as corruptible as anything else. And so you could have a group of people building infrastructure, building society, even over the course of a few hundred years. And there's going to be people who come across who are like natural psychopath or natural psychopaths,
Right.
and
Type
they're
one.
going to be easily corruptible. And there's going to be, oh, well, like some like person or group of people are coming down and they say that they'll give me all this in my ear. So I'm here at the top of this civilization, and here I am eating fat, and I'm going to give these specific types of orders in order to it like throw a wrench into the workings. So that's I think that's part of the allegory, is that that's also part of the warning. And you have to keep that in mind. It's not just like, I don't like going into it saying, oh, it's like I go with like what we know for sure and like what sounds logical. And I try to keep things more like in the physical, where it's like people, whether they're earth humans or whether they're off-worlders or whatever the case may be. And even though I know all the astral critters are hanging around, I feel like they're easily dealt with.
Right.
Like people don't come into my space, physical or non-physical, either way. They don't belong here. I throw people out. Like, doesn't matter, or astral critters or whatever they are. Like, not in my space. So I think they're very, like, anything that's like non-physical is very dealable with. Like, you can deal with them very easily. I think it's just about your firmness, about your will. Like the physical body, the physical person, we're the boss
And
currently.
and
So
and you don't want to and you don't want to open yourself up to too much influence as well. We do
right.
have the Annabelle doll story. Like we do have examples of things that led to actual deaths,
Yep.
sometimes of children, um, from being too open to the
Yep.
non-physical,
And
and
that
not,
stuff
like you said,
exists.
not being firm, not being knowledgeable, and maybe not, not having, let's say, faith in the truth. I'm not talking
Hmm.
about religious faith in some sort of book being literally true through and through, but just faith in the fact that there is a realm of unseen conscious beings that are just as smart, if not smarter than we are, maybe a little dumber than we are, at certain classes of beings, and they do things, and they like to
Yep.
play, and they like to interact just like we do.
Yep.
And the evil one, the more evil you are, the less capacity for creation you have. Right. The only reason you're evil is either because of jealousy, some sort of envy, coveting somebody else's stuff, or hatred. Jealousy and hatred are, in terms of frequency, the exact opposite of creation and love making and certain things. So the when you can't create, you manipulate,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
I'd
And the
say that's
class,
right.
yeah.
Like
So yeah,
the adversary that people should really be looking at is fear. Like they should really just call the adversary fear. And I say, go into it fearlessly. Face reality fearlessly, because then the adversary doesn't get a hold on you,
right,
because you're just like, yeah, I might be kind of afraid, and yeah, this is kind of scary and it's making me nervous, but I ain't gonna let it dictate how I'm going to operate. And you got to just move forward like that. And like you got, like I always tell people, don't just set your boundaries in the physical, set them in the non-physical as well. And then you're not going to like just be infiltrated like that by anything that's non-physical, just as like, a word of maybe friendly advice for people who like like to dabble in that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I would suggest not doing that.
Yeah.
like, like people who
Maybe.
like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna like check out this Ouija board. Like, second guess yourself. Don't do it. Like, I would just say, like, they it's crazy. But what's interesting about the Tower of Babel is that it does describe two very specific points, that there are people building community that
Yeah.
are functioning together, cooperating together despite whatever differences they may or may not have. And quote, God doesn't like it for some reason,
The
which is
Lord.
insane. That's an insane contradiction. It doesn't even make sense. It's completely contradictive.
The most theologically uncomfortable. I'm going to read from my notes here. Perfect segue. The most theologically uncomfortable version of the story. God, knowing exactly who orchestrated the project and what was in their hearts at the planning stage of orchestrating the project, can be read as protective, protective dispersal, saving humans from themselves. And the ordinary person was going to, farm somewhere else anyway, and the elite lost their workforce. Thereby, we are all separate now. But even if God disrupted the project, the architects, the archons, the Freemasons, whatever you want to call them, the architects kept that unified symbolic language and successfully got as far as they have gotten approximately 4 to 5 thousand years later today in their agenda. They may have lost that specific workforce. They may have lost the influence over the 1 million total people of the region or total people of the earth or the 100,000, whatever. But if the project was designed to ultimately separate people mentally, then they, you know, got the good end of the stick, and basically the God, the Lord in this story, provided them the win whilst, let's say, trying to disrupt their prideful ways.
Yeah, that sounds like that
It's
actually sounds
uncomfortable.
like a lot of like parasite class influence modern Christianity kind of jargon thrown at, like, God's protecting us from being innovative. Like, give me a break.
God
I just
forbid we unify and
I
speak this
can't
and speak
believe
to
that.
everybody.
I can't
Yeah,
even consider that. Like, to me, I'm just like, wow, that sounds like infiltrated, like jargon just from like
yeah.
somebody who wants to like stir the pot and like make a mess. Like, it's just, I mean, like that, like, I just don't like, I look at, the whole, I even look at the whole kind of spectrum of spirituality and sort of a scientific framework in my head,
Hmm.
because it makes sense to me that even spirituality is a science, because it's all part of the same universe. It's all part of the same reality. It's all part of the same, like, the entire universe, the makeup of reality is mathematical. So
Absolutely.
and like, it doesn't make sense that any god, like, the only thing that makes sense is if it's a usurper playing god and telling the people that that's who he is, that's
Hmm.
who they are. And that's what's interesting about the Tower of Babel is, and if you were to read Genesis in the original translations, it keeps coming up where they're not talking about, oh, God did this, God did this. The original translations is, they did this, they did that. And my main question is, who is they exactly? So that's where I'm reading the book and I'm like, okay, like, we need to like understand this a little bit more and understand what these words. And you'll have like modern Christian, like, and it's really mostly like Catholicism. Like, I wouldn't even say it, like old school American Christianity is a little bit different than the other denominations, even though it's not that, like, modern Christianity. I should say people should excuse scratch like pretty much like religion, because um I mean, that's what we have now, for like lack of a better word, but
Yeah.
really, like, there wasn't, like, we only got like 400 plus Christian denominations after the Emperor Constantine came in and was like, and like started turning Christianity into a state approved institution. Before
Yeah.
that, it wasn't that. And like, if Jesus was a real person, he wasn't part of that.
Yeah. I mean, well,
And
300
so,
years before Constantine, Rome literally
right,
crucified Yeshua.
right.
So,
So it was a
you know,
completely different thing. And like, that's what
yeah.
like my husband teaches.
Hmm.
So he teaches like what the real stuff is. And so like, and he's definitely more like eloquent than
Got to
I
bring him
am,
on the show.
articulate than I am. So it doesn't make sense that God is trying to like stir the pot, like, and put the
Or
brakes
thwart
on it.
his children. Right. It don't make sense
Right.
that God is trying to thwart the intellectual progress or development of his own children.
Right.
When
So,
there's nothing that we could, sorry to, I
mhm,
just, this last part of this thought just came to mind, I think is relevant. When there's nothing we as an individual human being or even as a collective of all human beings could do to actually match the intellect of the creator of this place, of the creator of the laws of magnetism and thermodynamics, and the creator of the laws of morality, and the creator of the laws that make this place possible, let alone the actual celestial bodies and body, the earth, that we walk on, that provides us with soil and rock and gold and air and volcanic ash and all of these things that we have and that we use to create cobalt, whatever, crystals, all types of things that we use
gold,
to
silver,
learn, right, to learn more and more, little piece by little piece, of what God has created and what power God actually has and has given to us in our creative capacities. What up,
yeah.
Theo?
Hey, Theo. Yeah, it's all very amazing. Like, and it's just like, it's sort of like it, what you were talking about, like the Garden of Eden. Like, I would kind of even speculate that this planet was designed to be that, the whole planet. Like, we really do live on like a paradise
Paradise, yeah.
planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've got, and it's rare, our planet. We've got beautiful land. We have so much water on this planet. Like, we've got so much wild, weird, bizarre, like, interesting life that has developed on this planet. um
I'm sorry. One sec. I abused the like button. Says Theo. Theo, you are appreciated for
yeah.
abusing the like button. If there is any abuse that we condone on this channel, beat the shit out that like button. Just don't click it so many times that you unclick it on the last one. Sorry, that was
So, like,
channel housekeeping. Yeah.
now, my personal theory in this is, like, if you're going to use the Tower of Babel story as what I think it's designed to be used as, which is an allegorical lesson that we should be kind of taking in and analyzing and really thinking about what is actually being said, what is actually happening, like the whole idea of God doing it for our protection, throw that out the window. I would say throw that away, like, because that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But the whole, like, idea, like, we are designed to innovate, we're designed to create, it's part of who we are. And God, at the real God, would encourage this. It would want us to do this because that's what it wants to do. Like, that's the whole point of it. So the only thing that really makes sense to me anyway is that the only reason why there would be disruption in this creation is if you have another group of people who may or may not have a higher level of technology at that
That's all right.
time,
Mm-hmm.
comes in and says, no, 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 we're not having any of that, and messes everything up. Now we have examples of this that prove this over and over and over in history, where we have a separate group of people who are a smaller group of people, but have more access probably to better technology, more knowledge, more information because they're hoarding it. And the rest of the group of people, it has been the same all throughout history. And we have example after example after example after example of this exact scenario happening. Divide and conquer is not a new tactic. This is a
Right.
military operation.
It's the oldest trick in the
So,
book.
oldest trick in the book, and it works every time because we forget our history. And so, there's plenty of examples out there. And for people to like go and research. And I'd say, like, you could even go in and look at some of the history that's even quite modern. One of my examples that was about dividing and conquering is the story of uh, like after the North and the South,
The
which
Civil
was
War.
the Confederacy and the Union, which
After the
was
Civil War.
and after the Civil War, where the North went up against the South and won to abolish human slavery, at least on this continent. And we won, the North won. And so then you have the South, like, and at the time, and even kind of like it really doesn't matter, but at the time, the majority of the South were like they were more of like the Democratic mind,
Mm-hmm.
and then the North or the Republican mind, really the conservative mind, and you had the South because now slavery is abolished, and now you have the South and the politicians involved, of course, in the legislative because it's got to be a free country where everybody
Mm-hmm.
gets represented, right? And you have them instilling things like the Jim Crow laws, the
Right.
Jim Crow laws that enforced. Now this was all on the Democratic side. The Jim Crow laws that were enforcing segregation between anybody who was white and black. So that's what, and that's still like you have to see that. Like I see that, I step back and I look at that from a different lens, from like a wider lens, where I'm like, that is an example of the parasite class using divide and conquer. That's what
Mm-hmm.
that is. Like it's using that because they lost their right to own people. So now they have to try to instill it through that. And then not that long afterwards, even the Jim Crow laws were dismantled and they were completely gotten rid of because it was against the Constitution that every man has the right to live free in this country.
Right. We
So
got the
like that's
13th and then the 14th.
yeah, like that is a modern day, like I wanted to bring that up because if you don't believe me that this like divide and conquer, like this tactic has happened over and over and over and over again in history, the more I read about history and research it, the more I see this scenario over and over and over. And the situation with the Jim Crow laws is just a modern example that people can look at.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you get the same thing uh, with all types of, and sometimes it's even individuals. It's that like individuals who are doing great work on behalf of the world or on behalf of the population that they live around, right? Like look at Nikola Tesla and his work. Although, of course, there's some strong evidence that he may also have been a sort of double agent. Don't know. Wasn't there. If we take on face value that he was basically a very gifted civilian that was doing um, scientific experiments with a lot of funding and whatnot, and came across esoteric knowledge that brought him to be able to integrate the mathematics and harmony in such a way that provided free energy, or he could make a machine or some sort of whatever that provides free energy to a region, to a local region, from pulling it out of the air, concentrating it, and then distributing it. His camp was First, it was infiltrated by what we may call in Hollywood today handlers. And then when the handlers didn't work, and then the threatening didn't work, then of course the violence is the last resort. But the infiltration is the same thing as then the Lord came down, saw the towers, and said, oh, they're going to be like us. Fuck that.
Yeah.
Can't have that. What are y'all down here having fun, smiling? Can't have that. So yeah, time to break this whole thing up. Time to ununify, if you will, divide, and keep the status quo of me as the Lord and you as the little peons doing whatever peons do. Um, man, I wish it was not already 55 minutes into the video. I do want to read the last bit of my notes here is the inner storyteller connection because this is the inner
Mm-hmm.
storyteller podcast. The Babel story, the Tower of Babel story, maps directly onto the manufactured mentality of the language of history. We did an episode. Really encourage you to watch it when you can, Sarah, on how history is worded, the diction, what we say about it. And in that episode, let me see, did I put that here? Let me just read this all the way through, and then I'll try to remember to come back to that point. The confusion of tongues is the engineering of a collective inner storyteller that cannot recognize itself in others. And that sorts the farmer in Barbaria and the farmer in France into different national identities rather than the same one human family. The history, even though they're both farmers, the history textbook that says, quote, Europe was full of tensions is Babel's confusion delivered through institutional language. Today we have something called America First. Well, America First is Babel's confusion delivered through political language. The inner storyteller framework is is in a meaningful sense an attempt to give the population access to something the initiated class has been keeping for themselves, which is the understanding of how the sorting or association function of the mind actually works, how symbols shape meaning before any real examination or reflection occurs in the mind of the individual, and how the collective inner storyteller gets manipulated and maintained to provide the archons their power. That's the recovery, or understanding that is the recovery of the unified language without the hierarchy and without the physical existence of a one unified language for 9 billion people being required. So that's the connection to my work here. You know what I'm saying? Um, I really enjoyed this conversation. We could even do a Tower of Babel part two because there's things that I wanted to like respond to and thoughts that came up that were like whole diatribes in my head. Um,
Yeah.
I definitely agree with you that the allegory is, and in many biblical accounts, is what has utility, and that the way that we should study history is through the moral lens. We shouldn't study morality by taking factoids from history and trying to interpret morality. No, we should study the objective nature of morality and use that factual lens about what the moral standard of this universe is to study history. And
Yeah.
that will give us a full picture of why stories played out the way that they did, even if we're only looking at, nations or governments or whatever, and
Or yeah,
saying that
just
that's the whole population of the region.
yeah, just a fraction of the story. It's just like don't read books, study them. Like
Right.
it's important to understand, like if you don't understand a word, look it up. Like it's not like we don't have access. Like I used to have to mark words down and go physically look it up in a dictionary, and
Yeah,
people can't
gone are the
even bother to
days.
do that on their phones. And I don't even understand that. But I'd say if anybody were going to take anything away from this, do not let an external force dictate how you are going to function in a society or create anything. Don't let yourself be influenced. Don't buy influence that doesn't make sense. I mean, come to your own conclusions. And the more you study books instead of just read stuff off the internet or whatever, the more you're going to have a more robust wherewithal and a finer tuned discernment capability.
Absolutely. I think I'm going to put this episode in both the Wednesday Tea with Sarah Cross and the I have a playlist, like a mini series going within this Inner Storyteller podcast playlist on YouTube called Let's Talk About the Word. I think I'm going to put this in that playlist so that people can just, check it out as a part of that, cuz that's what we talk about. We talk about the word, interpretations and things. Sarah Cross, everybody in the world, the link trees are below. Okay, let me fix the screen real quick so that they're readable. My link tree, Linktree slash ufuluchild. Sarah's Linktree slash Sarah underscore Cross, Cross cross expression. Theo with the memes. Theo, you got to make some memes and send them to us. I'll put them in a thumbnail. You know what I'm saying? Thank you all so very much for hanging out with us, and we will see you tomorrow in the next episode. Peace and love always.